My best friend of 20 years just told me she's moving in with her boyfriend, and I smiled through the pain while my heart shattered into a million pieces because I've been secretly in love with her for years. I pulled my car over to the side of the road because I couldn't see through the tears anymore. My hands gripped the steering wheel so tightly that my knuckles turned white, and my chest felt like someone had reached inside and squeezed my heart until it stopped beating. She was moving in with him. My best friend, the person I'd loved in secret for 4 years, was taking the next step with a man who was everything I could never be for her. The rational part of my brain kept repeating the same mantra I'd been telling myself for months. She deserves this. She deserves happiness. She deserves someone who can give her a normal relationship. But the irrational part, the part that had been quietly screaming for years, wanted to turn the car around, run back to her apartment, and confess everything. I wanted to tell her that every vacation we'd taken together felt like a honeymoon to me. That watching her read by the beach last year made me understand what people meant when they talked about finding home in another person. That the furniture I bought for her apartment wasn't just a generous gesture from a friend, but a desperate attempt to weave myself into her daily life in ways she'd never forget. 20 years of friendship hung in the balance, and I just smiled and said, "Amazing," when she told me the most devastating news of my life. I sat in that car for 40 minutes, watching the sun dip lower in the sky, trying to compose myself enough to drive home without causing an accident. My phone buzzed 3 times with messages from her, probably wondering if I was okay since I'd left so abruptly. I couldn't look at them, not yet. Not when seeing her name on my screen made fresh tears stream down my face. When I finally made it home, I walked straight past my roommate without saying a word, locked myself in my bedroom, and did something I hadn't done since my last relationship ended 3 years ago. I ugly cried into my pillow, the kind of crying where you can't catch your breath and your entire body shakes. My roommate knocked on the door twice, asking if I was all right, but I couldn't form words to answer. How could I explain that I was mourning the loss of something I never actually had? The next morning, I woke up with swollen eyes and a headache that felt like someone was hammering nails into my skull. My phone showed 15 missed messages, most of them from her. The preview of the last one read, "You're scaring me. Please just tell me you're okay." I knew I had to respond, had to pretend that everything was fine, that my abrupt departure yesterday was just exhaustion or stress from work or anything other than the truth. I typed out a lie. "Sorry, wasn't feeling well yesterday. Stomach bug. So happy for you two, really. When's the move?" Her response came within seconds. "Oh, thank God, I was so worried. Move is end of the month. Can we grab coffee today? I want to show you pictures of the place." And there it was, the test of my resolve. Could I sit across from her, smile at pictures of the home she'd be building with someone else, and continue this performance I'd been giving for years? Could I keep burying these feelings deeper and deeper until maybe, hopefully, they'd finally suffocate and die? I met her at our usual coffee shop, the one we'd been coming to since university. She was already there when I arrived, sitting at our favorite table by the window, and my heart did that painful flutter it always did when I saw her. She was wearing a sundress I'd never seen before, probably something he bought her, and her face lit up when she spotted me walking through the door. "You look terrible," she said as I sat down, concern creasing her forehead. "Are you sure you're feeling better?" "Just tired," I lied, accepting the coffee she'd already ordered for me. She always remembered exactly how I liked it, which was such a small thing but somehow made everything hurt more. "Show me these pictures." She pulled out her phone with an excitement I'd rarely seen from her, scrolling through dozens of photos of a beautiful townhouse with hardwood floors and large windows that let in cascades of natural light. She talked about how they'd decorate each room, where they'd put the furniture, how there was even a small garden in the back where she could finally have the vegetable patch she'd always wanted. I smiled and nodded and made all the appropriate sounds of enthusiasm, while something inside me withered and died. "And the best part," she said, her eyes shining, "there's a guest room. I was thinking it could be your room, you know, for when you stay over. I want you to feel like you have a space there too. You're my best friend. I can't imagine not having you around constantly." The irony of having a designated room in the home she'd share with her boyfriend wasn't lost on me. I'd be the permanent third wheel, the friend who got a guest room while he got to sleep beside her every night. But I forced myself to keep smiling because this was the role I'd chosen. This was the sacrifice I'd decided to make. "That sounds perfect," I heard myself say. "I'm really happy for you both." We spent another hour in that coffee shop, talking about everything and nothing. She told me about her work drama, about the vacation they were planning for next year, about how his mother had already started dropping hints about grandchildren. Each piece of information felt like a small cut, death by 1,000 paper cuts, but I absorbed it all with the practiced ease of someone who'd been doing this for years. When we finally said goodbye, she hugged me tighter than usual. "I love you, you know that?" she whispered. "I don't know what I'd do without you." "Love you too," I managed to say, and it was the most honest thing I'd said all day. I watched her walk away, probably heading to his place, to the man who got to hold her without hiding it, who got to kiss her without wondering if it would ruin everything, who got to love her openly while I loved her in secret. The next few weeks were torture. She kept me involved in every detail of the move, sending me pictures of paint samples and asking my opinion on furniture arrangements. I helped her pack boxes, hired the moving truck, even spent an entire Saturday helping them move everything into the new place. He was grateful, kept thanking me for being such a good friend, completely oblivious to the fact that every moment I spent in that house felt like attending my own funeral. But I was convincing. I laughed at his jokes, complimented their decorating choices, even stayed for the small housewarming party they threw a week after moving in. I drank wine and chatted with their couple friends, played the role of the supportive best friend so well that I almost believed it myself. Almost. 3 months after they moved in together, I made a decision that I thought would save me. I started dating someone new. His name was Marcus, and we'd met through a mutual friend at a gallery opening. He was kind, funny, successful, and most importantly, he was interested in me. Not in her, not in some impossible fantasy, but in me as I actually was. I didn't tell her about Marcus right away. Part of me wanted to keep this one thing separate, to have something that was mine alone without her being involved. But after our 4th date, when things started feeling serious, I knew I had to tell her. She was my best friend, after all, and she'd be hurt if she found out from someone else. I invited her to lunch, just the two of us, at a restaurant downtown. She seemed excited, probably happy to have dedicated friend time since she'd been spending most of her energy on her relationship and the new house. We ordered our food, made small talk about work, and then I took a deep breath and told her. "I've been seeing someone," I said, trying to sound casual. "It's still pretty new, but I wanted you to know." I expected her to be excited, to ask a million questions, to demand details about who he was and how we met. Instead, her face did something strange. Her smile faltered just for a second, and something flickered across her expression that I couldn't quite read. "Oh," she said, "that's great. Who is he?" I told her about Marcus, about how we met, about our dates and his job, and how easy everything felt with him. The more I talked, the quieter she became. She pushed her food around her plate, barely eating, and when I finally stopped talking, she looked up at me with an expression I'd never seen before. "Are you happy?" she asked. "I think I could be," I answered honestly. "It's nice to feel wanted, you know?" Something in her face crumpled at that, but she recovered quickly. "Of course you're wanted. You're amazing. I'm happy for you." But she didn't sound happy. She sounded almost hurt, which made no sense. She had everything. The perfect relationship, the perfect home, the perfect life. Why would my dating someone make her upset? The lunch ended awkwardly, with her claiming she had to get back to work early. She hugged me goodbye, but it felt different somehow, less warm than usual. I drove home confused, wondering what I'd said wrong, why sharing good news had created this strange tension between us. The next few days were weird. She didn't text me as much as usual, and when she did respond to my messages, her answers were short and distant. I asked if everything was okay, if I'd done something to upset her, but she insisted everything was fine. "Just busy with work," she said. "Just adjusting to the new house," she said. Then, a week after our lunch, my phone rang at 11 at night. It was her, which wasn't unusual since we often talked late into the evening, but something in her voice when I answered told me this wasn't a normal call. "Can we talk?" she asked. "Like, really talk?" "Of course," I said, sitting up in bed. "What's going on?" "Not on the phone. Can you come over?" I hesitated, knowing her boyfriend would be there, but the urgency in her voice made me agree. I threw on clothes and drove to her place, my mind racing with possibilities of what could be wrong. Maybe they'd had a fight. Maybe she was having second thoughts about moving in together. Maybe something had happened with her family. I never imagined it would be about me. She answered the door in pajamas, her hair pulled back in a messy bun, eyes red like she'd been crying. Her boyfriend wasn't home, she explained. He was working a late shift at the hospital. We sat on the couch in the living room I'd helped them set up, and for a long moment, neither of us spoke. "I need to tell you something," she finally said, her voice shaking, "and I need you to just listen, okay? Don't interrupt. Don't say anything until I'm done, because if I stop, I won't be able to start again." I nodded, my heart pounding with a fear I couldn't name. "I think I've been lying to myself for a really long time," she began. "About a lot of things, but especially about you, about us, about what you mean to me." My breath caught in my throat, but I didn't speak. I'd promised to listen. "When you told me you were seeing someone, I felt like someone had punched me in the stomach. I couldn't breathe. I couldn't think. And I've been trying to figure out why for the past week, why the thought of you with someone else makes me feel like I'm losing something vital." She looked at me then, tears streaming down her face. "I think I'm in love with you. I think maybe I have been for a long time, but I was too scared or stupid or confused to see it." The world tilted on its axis. Everything I'd believed, everything I'd accepted, suddenly shifted into a different configuration. She loved me. My best friend, the woman I'd been secretly loving for years, loved me back. "But here's the thing," she continued, her voice breaking. "I'm with him. I live with him. I've built a life with him. And he's good to me. He's so good to me, and I care about him so much. But when I'm with him, I think about you. When he kisses me, I wonder what it would feel like if it were you. When we're making plans for the future, I imagine you there instead of him." She covered her face with her hands, sobbing. "I'm a terrible person. I'm the worst kind of person. I'm living with someone while being in love with someone else, and I don't know what to do. I don't know how to fix this. And now you're with Marcus and you're happy, and I've ruined everything by telling you this." I sat frozen, unable to process what I was hearing. All those years of hiding, of suffering in silence, of convincing myself that loving her meant letting her be happy with someone else. And she'd been feeling the same way. We'd been two idiots circling each other, both too afraid to speak up, both choosing the safety of friendship over the risk of something more. "Say something," she whispered. "Please say something." "I don't know what to say," I admitted, my own voice shaking. "You're with him. You just moved in together. You're building a life together." "I know," she said miserably. "I know all of that, but I couldn't keep lying. I couldn't watch you fall in love with someone else without telling you the truth. Even if it's too late, even if I've already lost my chance." "Why now?" I asked. "Why are you telling me this now when you're in a relationship, when I'm trying to move on?" "Because I'm selfish," she said. "Because I'm scared. Because for 20 years you've been the most important person in my life, and the thought of losing you to someone else made me realize what I've been denying for so long." We sat there in her living room, in the house she shared with another man, with years of unspoken feelings finally laid bare between us. I thought about Marcus, who was kind and uncomplicated and didn't come with decades of history and confusion. I thought about her boyfriend, who loved her and treated her well and had no idea that his girlfriend was in love with someone else. I thought about the last 4 years of my life, watching her with other people, convincing myself that her happiness was more important than my own. "I need time," I finally said. "This is a lot, and I need time to process it." She nodded, wiping at her tears. "I understand. I'm sorry for dumping this on you. I'm sorry for being so selfish." I drove home in a daze, my mind spinning with everything she'd said. When I got back to my apartment, I found Marcus had texted me asking about weekend plans. Sweet, normal, uncomplicated Marcus, who represented a fresh start and a future without the weight of 20 years of history. I didn't sleep that night. I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, replaying every moment of the past 4 years. The vacation where I'd watched her swim and realized I was in love with her. The times she'd caught me staring and asked if I was okay. The furniture I'd bought, the deposit I'd paid, all the ways I'd tried to make myself indispensable to her life. Had she known then? Had some part of her recognized what I was feeling? And what about all the times before that? 20 years of friendship, of being each other's constant, of knowing each other better than anyone else. Had there always been something more simmering beneath the surface? Something neither of us wanted to acknowledge because it would complicate everything? The next morning, I called in sick to work and spent the day trying to figure out what to do. The logical choice was clear. She was in a relationship. I was starting one, and confessing our feelings for each other now would only create chaos and hurt innocent people. The right thing to do was to step back, to let her work through her confusion with her boyfriend, to give my relationship with Marcus a real chance. But when had love ever been logical? I thought about what she'd said, about thinking of me when she was with him, about imagining a future with me instead of the person she was actually building a life with. I thought about my own 4 years of secret longing, of loving her from the shadows, of convincing myself that watching her be happy with someone else was enough. Was I supposed to go back to that now? Now that I knew she felt the same way? How could I sit across from her at coffee shops, help her paint guest rooms, attend holiday dinners at her house, knowing that we both wanted something different but were too afraid to reach for it? 3 days passed with minimal contact between us. She sent a few tentative texts asking if I was okay, if we could talk, if she'd completely destroyed our friendship. I responded with short, non-committal answers because I genuinely didn't know what to say yet. Meanwhile, Marcus and I had a date planned for Friday night. He wanted to take me to this new Italian restaurant he'd heard about. Maybe catch a movie afterward. Normal date activities for a normal, developing relationship. I almost canceled 3 times, but forced myself to go, thinking maybe spending time with him would help clear my head. He picked me up at 7, looking handsome in a button-down shirt and nice jeans. He opened my car door, made me laugh with stories from his work week, and was generally everything a person should want in a partner. We had good conversation over dinner, shared a dessert, and when he walked me to my door afterward, he kissed me goodnight. It was a perfectly nice kiss. He was a perfectly nice person, and I felt absolutely nothing. All I could think about was her, about the way she'd looked at me with tears streaming down her face, about 20 years of history and 4 years of hidden feelings finally brought into the light. All I could think about was the what-ifs and the maybes and the possibility that we could actually be together if we were brave enough to try. "You're not really here, are you?" Marcus asked gently, pulling back from the kiss. "I'm sorry," I said, because what else could I say? He studied my face for a long moment, then sighed. "There's someone else. It's complicated," I tried to explain. "It always is," he said, not unkindly. "Look, you seem like a great person, but I'm not interested in being someone's second choice. If you need to figure things out with whoever it is, I understand, but I'm not going to wait around while you do." He was right, of course. He deserved someone who was fully present, fully invested, not someone whose heart was somewhere else entirely. We said goodbye, and I watched him drive away, knowing I'd just lost something good because I couldn't let go of something complicated. I pulled out my phone and stared at her contact information. It was late, almost 11, but I knew she'd still be awake. I knew because after 20 years, I knew everything about her. I knew she read before bed, that she kept her phone on the nightstand, that she rarely fell asleep before midnight. My finger hovered over the call button. One tap, and I could tell her everything. I could confess my own 4 years of hidden feelings. Could tell her that every sacrifice I'd made was because I loved her too much to risk losing her friendship. We could figure out together what to do about her relationship, about the house they just moved into, about the complicated mess we'd created by both being too afraid to speak up sooner. But would that be fair to her boyfriend? To this man who'd done nothing wrong except fall in love with someone whose heart belonged elsewhere? Would it be fair to blow up his life because we'd finally gotten honest with each other? I put the phone down without calling. Instead, I made a different decision. I showed up at her house the next morning without calling first. I needed to see her face when I told her what I was about to say. Her boyfriend answered the door, surprised to see me, but friendly as always. "She's in the kitchen," he said, stepping aside to let me in. "Want some coffee?" "Actually," I heard myself say, "I need to talk to both of you, together." Something in my tone made his smile fade. He called for her, and she appeared in the doorway from the kitchen, still in her pajamas, her face registering shock when she saw me. "Can we sit down?" I asked. We moved to the living room, her next to him on the couch, me in the chair across from them. She looked terrified, probably thinking I was about to expose her confession from a few nights ago. But that's not what I came to do. "I need to tell you both something," I began, my heart hammering so hard I could hear it in my ears. "And I need to be honest, completely honest, even though it's going to hurt people." I looked at her boyfriend, this genuinely good man who'd welcomed me into their home, who'd trusted me as her best friend. "I'm in love with her. I have been for years. I've hidden it, buried it, tried to move past it, but I can't anymore. And recently I found out that she has feelings for me too." Her face went white. He looked between us, confusion and hurt dawning on his features. "I'm not telling you this to blow up your relationship," I continued, forcing myself to meet his eyes. "I'm telling you because you deserve to know the truth. You deserve someone who loves you completely, without reservation, without wishing things were different. And right now, I don't think you have that." The silence that followed was deafening. She was crying quietly, and he looked like I'd slapped him. I stood up, knowing I needed to leave before I lost my nerve. "I'm sorry," I said. "I'm so sorry for all of this, but you deserve to know." I walked out of that house not knowing what would happen next. Whether I'd just destroyed the most important friendship of my life, whether I'd hurt an innocent person for no reason, but for the first time in 4 years, I felt like I could breathe. My phone started ringing 20 minutes after after I got home. It was her, but I didn't answer. She called 3 more times, then switched to texting. Please pick up. We need to talk. Please. I turned my phone off and spent the day in my apartment, second-guessing every decision I'd ever made. What had I done? What right did I have to drop that bomb on their relationship? Maybe she would have figured things out on her own. Maybe her confusion would have passed, and they would have been happy together. Maybe I'd just ruined everything for everyone because I was too selfish to keep suffering in silence. That evening, there was a knock on my door. I knew who it would be before I opened it. She stood in my hallway, still in the same pajamas from this morning, eyes swollen from crying. "Can I come in?" she asked quietly. I stepped aside, and she walked into my apartment. The first time she'd been here since I'd helped her move out months ago. We stood in my living room, neither of us knowing where to start. "He's devastated," she finally said. "We talked for hours after you left. He said he'd suspected something wasn't right, but he thought it was just adjustment stress from moving in together. He never imagined—" "I'm sorry," I said. "I shouldn't have done that. It wasn't my place." "No," she said firmly. "You were right. He deserved to know. I should have been honest with him weeks ago, but I was too much of a coward." "What happens now?" I asked. She looked at me with red, exhausted eyes. "He's staying with his brother for a few days. We agreed we need space to figure things out, but we both know it's probably over. You can't come back from this kind of thing." The weight of that hung between us. A relationship ending. A life unraveling, all because of feelings that had been buried for too long. "I need you to understand something," she said, taking a step closer. "These feelings I have for you, they're not new. I've been fighting them for years, telling myself that what we had as friends was safer, easier, that risking it for something more would be stupid. But after you told me about Marcus, I couldn't deny it anymore. The thought of losing you, of you building a life with someone else while I pretended to be happy from the sidelines, it broke something open in me." "I know exactly what you mean," I said quietly. "I've been doing the same thing, watching you with other people, convincing myself that your happiness was more important than mine." "So what do we do now?" she asked. "Where do we go from here?" I looked at her. This person who'd been my best friend for 20 years, who I'd loved from the shadows for 4 of them, who was standing in my apartment with her heart as broken and confused as mine. "I don't know," I admitted, "but I think we need to figure it out together. No more hiding, no more pretending. Just honest, messy truth." She nodded, tears starting again. "I'm scared. What if we try this and it ruins everything? What if we lose the friendship?" "We might," I said, "but we've already lost what we had before. We can't go back to how things were, not after everything that's been said. So we either move forward or we walk away completely." "I don't want to walk away," she whispered. "Neither do I said. She crossed the distance between us then, and when she kissed me, it felt like coming home and jumping off a cliff at the same time. 20 years of friendship, 4 years of hidden longing, weeks of confusion and pain, all of it crystallized into this one moment of terrifying possibility. We had no idea if this would work. We didn't know if we'd be good together as more than friends, if the romance would live up to the build-up, if we'd regret blowing up our lives for this. But as I held her in my apartment, finally honest about what we both wanted, I thought maybe the not knowing was okay. Maybe love wasn't about certainty or logic or making the safe choice. Maybe it was about being brave enough to reach for what you truly wanted. Consequences be damned. The next few weeks were chaos. Her boyfriend moved out completely, taking his things gradually while she was at work to avoid more painful confrontations. She felt guilty. I felt guilty. We both felt like we'd hurt someone who didn't deserve it. But there was also relief in not hiding anymore, in being able to be honest about what we felt. We took things slowly, maybe too slowly given everything that had happened. We went on actual dates, held hands in public, figured out how to be together romantically after 2 decades of being friends. It was strange and wonderful and terrifying all at once. Some things felt completely natural, like we'd been doing this forever. Other things were awkward and new and required us to learn each other all over again in different ways. Our friends were shocked when we told them. Most were supportive, though a few expressed concern about what would happen if things didn't work out. One mutual friend stopped speaking to us entirely, feeling we'd treated her boyfriend poorly. Maybe we had. It's hard to know what the right thing was in a situation where every choice hurt someone. 3 months after that morning in her living room, we were lying in my bed together, her head on my chest, both of us unable to sleep despite being exhausted. "Do you regret it?" she asked quietly. "Any of it?" I thought about her ex-boyfriend, who from what I heard was doing okay, but had understandably cut off all contact with both of us. I thought about Marcus, who I'd hurt by not being honest sooner. I thought about the friendship we'd fundamentally changed by crossing this line, knowing we could never go back to what we were before. I regret the pain we caused, I said honestly. I regret not being honest sooner with everyone, but do I regret this? Us? No, I don't. She was quiet for a moment, then said, I was talking to my therapist about all of this. She said something interesting. She said that sometimes we convince ourselves that sacrifice is the same thing as love, that if we're hurting ourselves for someone else's benefit, that proves how much we care. But real love isn't about suffering in silence. It's about being honest and brave enough to say what you really want. Your therapist sounds smart, I said. She is. She also said we're both idiots who wasted 4 years being miserable when we could have just talked to each other. I laughed despite myself. Well, she's not wrong about that. I love you, she said suddenly. Not as my best friend, though you're still that too. But I'm in love with you, and I want to say it out loud now. I want you to hear it. I love you too, I said, and this time I wasn't hiding it. This time there were no qualifications, no silent suffering, no noble sacrifices. Just the simple truth, finally spoken. We still had a lot to figure out. She needed to officially end her lease on the house she'd shared with her ex. We needed to decide if we were going to move in together or take things slower. We had to navigate the awkwardness with friends and family who'd known us for years as just friends. The road ahead wasn't simple or easy, but for the first time in years, I felt like I was living my truth instead of hiding from it. For better or worse, we'd chosen to be brave. We'd chosen to reach for what we wanted instead of what was safe. We'd chosen each other with all the complications and consequences that came with it. And as I held her in the darkness of my bedroom, listening to her breathe as she finally fell asleep, I thought that maybe, just maybe, we'd made the right choice after all. The question wasn't whether we should have told each other sooner, or whether we'd handled everything perfectly, or whether innocent people got hurt in the process. Life is messy, and love is messier, and sometimes there are no clean answers or perfect solutions. The question was whether we were brave enough to live honestly, to choose love over fear, to build something real instead of safe. And for the first time in 4 years, I finally knew the answer: yes.